Welcome, everyone. It is 4 o'clock exactly. We will be getting started momentarily. We see folks are still signing on.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Can I share my screen? And I know we're a minute past, so maybe I'll just give it another minute before we jump in. Okay, I think we have plenty of folks here, so we can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liz, and want to welcome you to our 7th Arvin and Lamont Pesticide Subcommittee meeting. I'm joined here tonight by my co-facilitator, Amy. Before we open it up for our welcome and introductions, let us take a few minutes to walk through our housekeeping slides and our interpretation. So on my screen, you see some instructions for selecting your interpretation channel. And I'm going to pass it to our Linguística team, I think Tanya, to walk us through those slides.
Thank you very much, Liz. Buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a su reunión. Este es un recordatorio de que, como siempre, tenemos la interpretación en español ya disponible para ustedes. Si ustedes ingresaron con un teléfono móvil o una tableta, necesitan tocar su pantalla. Van a buscar los 3 puntitos, ya sea en la parte de arriba o en la parte de abajo del menú de Zoom. Seleccionen donde dice Interpretación de idioma. Después seleccionen Español. Los invitamos también a seleccionar silenciar el audio original para que solo escuchen una voz a la vez. Y por último, es muy importante que seleccionen el botón azul que dice Done, listo o finalizado. Si ingresaron con una computadora, sus opciones son diferentes. Van a ver un icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo del menú de Zoom. Seleccione ese icono y seleccione el canal de español y nuevamente silenciar el audio original. Si necesitan ayuda, nos pueden dejar saber en el chat. Ahora voy a dar mis instrucciones en inglés. Hello, everyone. This is just a reminder that we already have the interpretation ready for you. So if you're a monolingual English speaker, we do ask you to please select the English channel. That way you can have that immediate communication from Spanish into English. If you're joining with the computer, you'll see a glove at the bottom of your screen. Please click on the glove and select the English channel. If you're joining with a cell phone or a tablet, your options are a little different. You need to tap your screen, find the 3 dots either on top or at the bottom of your device, select language interpretation, then select English, and then it's very important to select done or finalize so you can have the option ready for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And please let us know if you're having any issues getting into the interpretation channel or hearing the interpretation. So we'll move through our slides. Here we have, oh, I see a hand. Yeah, Bianca.
On the computer side, it doesn't have an icono of the world. You have to click on more to get the interpretation. I don't know if the folks understand that. That's why I put it in the chat.
Yeah, thank you for that. And if anyone is having difficulty with the interpretation, I'll just pause for a moment to make sure. Not seeing any other hands or chat comments, so I'll continue moving.
Can we make sure Si han podido conectarse con la interpretación, yo sé que nos estaban
Were
diciendo
you
de
able to connect with the interpretation? I think you cannot see the word like icon in the screen. You have to click where it says more. So I don't know if you have any issues with it.
Seeing a thumbs up from Diana and a couple other folks. So I think we're good, Liz. Thank you, Bianca.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thank you,
Zoom.
Bianca.
Yeah, I just want to remind folks that Zoom did get a whole lot of upgrades during January. So depending on if you accepted the upgrades in January, you may or may not see the 3 dots or the globe. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, Zoom likes to just surprise you with updates. Okay. So our virtual meeting etiquette slides, I'll try to go through these a little quickly. Just a reminder to stay on mute unless you're speaking. And if you're on the phone, you can mute and unmute by pressing *6. We also ask for folks to raise their Zoom hand if you have a question or comment that you would like to share. And again, if you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. So here we have a review of our group agreements. I'll read through these a little quickly for us. So everyone here has agreed to help achieve the meeting goals by focusing on solutions, opportunities, and productive dialogue. We want to make sure we're mindful of creating space for everyone to participate. That might mean stepping up if you are more on the quiet side, or stepping back if you tend to be a little more talkative. Next, we asked for everyone to be kind and respectful, knowing that it's okay to disagree as long as you do so with respect and empathy. In these meetings, we also agreed to stay on point and on time. So we ask folks to keep your comments brief to allow everyone a chance to participate. Next, we also agreed to attack the problem and not the person, honoring everyone's humanity and dignity. And finally, we all agreed to seek common ground. Building consensus and finding shared values will help us achieve the best results. And here is our agenda for this evening. As a reminder, subcommittees are separate spaces from our regularly scheduled CSC meetings. So we'll have our typical welcome and introductions. We'll move on to our SERP commitments review. And then we will move on to a pesticide monitoring discussion. And that's where we'll be spending most of our time tonight. And then we'll finish up with some agency updates. And then we'll have open floor for any final or public comments and to read aloud any next steps. And I'll stop sharing my screen. So happy to transition us to our welcome and introductions. My name again is Liz, and I'm one of the facilitators. I see a couple of our colleagues, maybe not Cesar, but Bianca, I know you're here, so I want to invite you to share any opening remarks before we get started.
I wanted to thank the community for coming in. I've been seeing a lot of state agency and local enforcers, so I'm very happy that we're here to make changes in our community, and especially on the pesticide piece. And that's my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. And again, I'm not seeing Cesar here, and I'll also note that Jessica is out today, and so she will not be joining, but we have our Air District representatives here, Stephanie and Eric. Want to invite one or both of you to share any opening remarks before we get started.
Thank you so much, Liz. Can everyone hear me okay? Thanks. And again, my name is Stephanie Ng, and I'm a program manager in our Community Strategies and Resources Department, which oversees the AB 617 program. Just wanted to echo Bianca's sentiments and just share my appreciation for everyone for being here. I think the subcommittee continues to be just a stellar example of how much we can get done when we have agencies coming together and community working together. And so I think our agenda, we have a lot of items on here that I'm really excited to talk about. And so I'm happy to get started.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so happy to transition us to our first agenda item. So transparency and accountability, as we know, are essential for effective community engagement as we implement the SERP. And so the SERP commitments tracker helps provide just that. And it is a reminder of the collaboration that is needed across agencies to implement these strategies for cleaner air. So tonight, the Air District is prepared to review the overall commitments with the group, and we'll have some time for brief discussion. I'm so happy to pass it to the Air District.
Thank you, Liz. And this is Stephanie again. I think you summarized this tracker perfectly, but again, what I'm about to share my screen and show is again this SERP commitment tracker that we have with you all that really summarizes the commitments that we made in the Community Emissions Reduction Program, or our SERP. This was mailed out to everyone who opts to get paper materials, but if you want a copy and didn't get one, please feel free to let us know. And again, we use these trackers as just a really great tool to help keep all of us agencies kind of accountable to the commitments we made to the community. And so I'm going to really quickly share my screen and walk you through what it is, and then I'll kind of orient us to where we are today. And so again, this is our SERP tracker for the pesticide subcommittee. It'll show the commitment on the very left-hand side that was made in the SERP. Next, it'll show the actions to kind of help us achieve this commitment, who is responsible, so what agency is kind of working on this and leading this, whether or not it's completed, and kind of the subcommittee meeting that it happened in. And so for today, one of the commitments in the SERP is to provide technical support to the CSC and Air District regarding pesticide monitoring. And so that's the conversation and the discussion we'll plan to have with you all today that our state agency CARB is leading to help us kind of plan, provide you all with the kind of the information we all need to further discuss pesticide monitoring in the community. Please feel free to take a look at this. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer it. But with that, I will pass it back to Harder.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that update and helping ground us in today's conversation. So let's go ahead and move to our next agenda item. So for this item, as you can see in today's agenda, we're going to spend about 45 minutes or so talking about pesticide monitoring. And so as you may recall from our last pesticide subcommittee meeting, pesticide monitoring updates were provided at that meeting, and there was a lot of dialogue and a lot of conversation about how monitoring was taking place, the frequency of monitoring, what is being monitored, the timely recording and analysis of the data that are being recorded. And so given that conversation, we did run out of time, and some folks were left with unanswered questions. So the goal for today is to be able to provide you all with a very timely discussion that allows you all to feel a little bit more clear about what's happening in terms of pesticides within our pesticide monitoring here in Arvin, Lamont, and to provide space for you all to ask any questions. We hope that you walk away from this discussion with a better understanding of what is happening. So with that said, at this time, I'd love to invite CARB, and I see James has come on camera, to walk us through this update. And you should be able to share your screen right now. Let me know if you need any support.
Yeah, I think I see that button. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to reintroduce myself. I'm James. I'm the liaison for the monitoring and laboratory division for Arvin and Lamont. So we'll just do a little bit of review today, and then wanted to leave a lot of room for any suggestions or any questions that might come up as we're kind of starting to do a little bit more, or at least go to the next steps for monitoring. So okay. Can everyone see that? The two slides? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to offer a little bit of a review on what we discussed last time on what we're recommending for this community in terms of monitoring. So this is all based off of use data from 2019, 2020, and 2021, data that we obtained from DPR. So the two compounds that we're looking at monitoring are 1,3-dichloropropene, 1,3-D, or mettam sodium and mettam potassium. And the breakdown product of that is MITC. So we're kind of have our focus on these compounds because they're fumigant. They're on the toxic air contaminant list. We have laboratory and monitoring protocols for these, and they're major pesticides with a high impact or potential impact on community health. So we're recommending a seasonal intensive monitoring model. So what that means is that we'll monitor for about 13 weeks, and we're hoping to do concurrent sampling, which means that we'll be monitoring for both compounds at the same time. So all the data, the little just review from last time, there were different peaks, and I'll show down a slide after this. Peak usage for 1,3-D was kind of focused towards the summer and a little bit in the winter time too. MITC was a little bit more sporadic, just throughout the year. It was getting varied usage. So we're recommending to do 3 monitoring locations within the boundaries. And then one of those would be the quality control sampler. Usually that's at the downwind location. And I think for this community, that's kind of in the Arvin area, kind of in the southeast corner of the boundary. Yeah, so the model kind of puts us in monitoring for 13 continuous weeks, and per week we'll have 4 consecutive 24-hour samples, and each week we'll try to sample on different days so we can get a kind of randomized data points throughout the whole 13 weeks, and we're trying to target kind of equally different days of the week during the whole campaign. So these 2 slides were shared at the September meeting, and these are from DPR. So kind of just showing the usage patterns of the last few years of MITC and 1,3-D. And this is within 5 miles of the community. So I know it's a little small, but you can kind of see that 1,3-D kind of gets mixed usage throughout the year. There are a few peaks here. MITC, pretty focused, kind of like in the June, July, August timeframe. And then I think this is week 40, it looks like. So around like late October, early November, kind of.
So James, before you go
Yes.
forward, if you can go back for 1 second, just to clarify for folks that are maybe not as familiar reading your graphs. So this data that you have shown here plots the number of weeks across the year as a function of the amount that's been detected. right?
Not detected. This is based off of permit. From what I understand, I'm sorry, I don't know if there's any chat messages. I can't see those right now because I'm on a single screen. But I don't know if DPR wants to jump in, or maybe we can discuss this at the end. But from what I understand, yeah, so on the bottom, basically week 0 of the year, January 1st, all the way through week 52, the end of the year. And then on the y-axis is the pounds of active ingredients that are permitted during that time frame.
Yeah, so that is, hi, this is Aniela from DPR. And so, yeah, that's correct. On the x-axis, it's the week number of the year. And on the y-axis, it's the amount used in that week for each of those pesticides.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't checking the chat right now. I don't see anything else. So, but you know, we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. So what we're seeing here is kind of it's a hotspot map that's generated based on the social pinpoint map that the Air District has provided. So you'll see kind of the cool colors and also the warmer colors. So the warmer colors kind of indicate that there's at least a little bit more interest or more comments in that particular location. And then kind of the cooler blues and greens you know, we got some comments there. And I see Stephanie raised her hand. So I'll hand it over to the Air District to kind of explain a little bit more on this.
Thank you so much, James. And hi, everyone. This is Stephanie again. Like James mentioned, the map that you're seeing there is kind of what we call like hotspots or areas in the Arvin Lamont community that we've received kind of from this whole time that we've been working with you all, comments about pesticide concerns. So I really just want to quickly walk everyone through how we got to this map. That way it makes maybe a little more sense of where this feedback is coming from. So James, I'm wondering, can I share my screen really quickly? Awesome, thank you. Okay, I'm hoping everyone can see a map with some dots all over the place. Perfect. I hope this map looks really familiar to you all. It's one that we've been using, I think, really since the start of when we've been working with this committee. This essentially kind of is tracking a lot of really the kind of concerns that folks have had related to just overall sources of concern in their community. It's the map that we use to help put together our community air monitoring network. And so it kind of has collected all of the feedback that you all have let us know, including concerns about pesticides or suggestions that you all have given us. It includes kind of every exercise that we've done kind of in our Zoom meetings, some recent meetings that we did in person. We had a couple of stations that were like set up that were collecting feedback on pesticide monitoring locations. So we've collected all of that information into this map. And the way that we got that heat map is just, I think we were just trying to get a sense of overall in the community, you all have let us know of your concerns kind of from this time that we've been working together. So how can we use this data to kind of identify where those concerns are? And so again, in this map, I'll just show you, we are doing what's called kind of a heat map analysis. And so I'm going to turn all these, I'm going to toggle this heat map on, and this kind of turns those little dots into like kind of areas of to show like which areas have like maybe more comments versus less of them. And I'm going to actually filter it out. So there are only comments that are related to pesticides. And kind of as you can see here, there's a couple of areas really that I think overall through the course of all of us kind of working together on this work, that there's been really three main areas that we've been receiving kind of a lot of comments that are related to pesticide concerns. That kind of orangey spot in Arvin, in Weed Patch, and then also kind of on Main Street and like 184. And so, or sorry, on 184, and this is Mountain View. And so these are kind of areas that we've heard a lot of concerns, and that I think really is a good starting point of when we're starting to discuss kind of monitoring sites. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions on how we got here. And if there are no questions, I do see a question. Go ahead, Bianca.
So at the moment, you're looking at 3 locations. The first one would be on Mountain View, southern of Lamont, where we patch, I think it's on Sunset. It's 184 on Sunset and 223 and Comanche Road. Are those the 3 possible locations for monitoring that DPR is looking at, or you're just mentioning the hotspots that residents were recommending to put the monitoring?
That's exactly it, Bianca. This is to kind of summarize and exactly what you said is these are just kind of summaries of the comments that you all have given us already about pesticides. Those kind of darker colors on the map are showing areas in which we've received a lot of comments from you all already about it. And so we just want to make sure that all the feedback that you all are letting us know this whole time, we're putting that to use, and we want to make sure that we're collecting it as we're working with you. And so this is just really a summary of that feedback that you all have given us already. These kind of areas are where we're seeing a lot of the comments. I hope that answered your question. I'm happy to take any other questions as well. Go ahead, Bianca.
I don't know who this question falls into, but I was wondering, is there a reasoning why there's only 3 monitors being placed in this area, or because of funding, or what's the reasoning for 3 monitorings instead of adding a little bit more, as it's a bigger area?
It's a great question, and maybe I do think James, you kind of get into like the monitoring aspect of it in the rest of your presentation, right?
Yeah, it's just a combination of factors. So we're, just following. We've supported DPR in terms of air monitoring in the past, and we've done whole counties with three monitors. So I mean, just given the size of this community, I think it's like north to south about 12 miles. We felt that this would definitely cover kind of all of the area and still provide a good resolution of data for community to use. And it's also have to do with just resources during that time, because we're generating so many samples. Our lab can only handle that much, and also we physically have to be out there every day for those 4 and 5 days to set up. So that it pretty much comes down to being smart with our resources, and also kind of generating good data for the community to use.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Stephanie, for that.
I don't see any other hands. I can go back to the PowerPoint.
Yeah, and I will let you know, James, if folks have questions or if there's questions in the chat, so you don't have to monitor those.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can we see both again? Both slides?
Yes.
Yeah, so at this time, we noticed that there are hotspots, but we are, any recommendations that are within the community boundary we'll be interested in looking at. And given that we're looking for certain sites that meet these criteria. So we want something that's secure, has a household power outlet that we can tap into, is accessible for our staff to get in and out of during the day, multiple times a week, like 4 or 5 times a week. We need a little bit of space, about 8 by 8 feet, I'm guessing, just to set up our equipment. And we're looking for something that has unobstructed airflow. So that pretty much means something that's not next to a high wall or building. If there's trees nearby, we try to stay a little bit farther away from those. Just so we want to make sure we get the best possible air samples that we can get. So yeah, if anyone has any suggestions or any contact that we can reach out to, we're happy to look at everything that comes up. Yeah, so these are kind of our next steps. You know, we're going to continue to identify and visit the potential monitoring locations in the community. We'll draft our monitoring plan, kind of that's kind of been sidelined just because we don't really have everything finalized yet in terms of locations and also the compound. And then we'll continue looking at our sampling method to make sure that everything works out. And then, you know, we'll get to the point where we'll finalize both the sites and also the plan, and then we'll start monitoring. Yeah, I think I see a hand up. Mario?
Yeah. I got a question for you, and this is going something what you're saying right now. I got like a year waiting for them to take out that little hill, that big hill, like a mile long. So-called, they were supposed to take it out, and they haven't did it. And two, I wanted to know if the air district could put a mobile air monitor when they start taking it out to find out what type of gases will come out of that area. And two, I want DBR to put a pesticide monitor, mobile monitor, to find out what kind of pesticide they dump right there.
Mario, thank you so much for your questions and comments. You are kind of cutting out. I don't know if you can put the mic closer to your mouth and repeat the last two comments that you made.
Well, I was coming for that little hill, mountain, whatever it is, right there in Haybaker, right here in Lamont. So-called, they were supposed to take all that dirt out, and I wanted to know if they could put an air monitor to find out what type of gases will come out of that area. And two, I want DBR to send a mobile monitor to find out what kind of pesticide they dump there.
Thanks for that, Mario.
Yeah,
If there's any way in the
they
go ahead.
They haven't sent no paperwork saying that they'll take that dirt out. And so-called, they said that they were gonna do it last year, and now it's been taking already close more like a year and something. And I was wondering what happened or what's going on.
Yeah, Mario, I think these are all great questions. I don't know, I don't think, James, that there's an answer right this second. So I wonder if we can write down your questions and make it an action item to report back at the next CSC meeting.
Yeah.
So today's subcommittee meeting is really to provide an update on these pesticides, and it's all interrelated. So thank you for bringing that to their attention. So we will do our best. We'll write it down to try to get the answers for the next meeting that we have.
Yeah, and two, I was gonna say about the monitors. So-called, they said that we can't cross the borderline. Well, my understanding was that we could, because we were gonna extend the borderline on to put the monitors wherever we want.
Okay,
And,
that might be a
I
question
don't know
that.
what's going on.
Okay, so you're asking, can the monitor location be outside of the boundary? That's your question.
No, I'm saying that they told us it's on record, and they told us that we could go out of the boundary because we grow the borderline, we grow it out.
Okay.
Yeah, to your comment about that, I want to say, you know, at the last meeting in September, we were taking suggestions, and I was taking everything down. You know, at that point, we weren't sure what was going to happen with monitoring outside the boundary. I'm not really sure I have a good answer either way, but you know, because you know, we have a boundary, and that's the kind of the area we're serving. We want to focus our,
but you have
you
to
know, our,
understand you have to understand one thing. My understanding, what they told us, that we could cross the boundary because we'll move the boundary wherever we think it, for the problems that's my understanding.
Yeah, Mario, I think this is a good area of discussion that we need to have. So the decisions that get made are with all of the CSC meetings, members. So let's bring this back to the CSC because I want to be able to have a discussion about what the current update is. And it sounds like potentially you might want to have a modification to that. And we wouldn't be able to do any modification unless we're in a CSC meeting, since this subcommittee is really to hear updates and to have the dialogue specific about pesticides. So Stephanie, I'm wondering if we could just make sure that cover this at the next CSC meeting. And if you have any questions or answers for Mario right now, but I'd like to move us back to the next steps.
Yeah, maybe this is Stephanie. Hi, everyone again. Maybe I'll just quickly share and respond. I definitely, like Amy, you're saying, I think we all recognize that, pollution and, air, there's no boundaries in it. It's not like what we do in the boundary just stays there. But I think there is some recognition kind of with all of our, the resources that we have, that we did work together to build, to, create this boundary of the Arvin Lamont community that we're working in. These are, when we do our incentive programs, the funding is really meant for this kind of the resources for this boundary. And maybe for context, I do think where we can, provide benefits to, the whole community, I think that's really great. I do also maybe just, and Amy, what you're saying, just share, I think they're within our own boundary and within kind of the work that we've been doing, it sounds like there are a lot of locations that are actually within the boundary that folks are still interested in. And so I maybe just wanting to bring that back into context is there are, I think, we have heard a lot of feedback from community members that there are areas within the boundary that there's interest in monitoring in. So I think that's a great starting place. And I think when we have the opportunity, we can kind of look to see what other benefits we can continue to, extend beyond the boundary. Yeah, so maybe I'll just kind of share that and happy to follow up on your other.
I was going to say something about that. But the problem is that we should have had a meeting talking about if we would extend the boundary. Because, they said that we could extend the boundary, but we never came back to talk about it to extend it. Now, you want to just go by the boundary, and, my understanding is that we could go across the boundary, like that we could, to get more monitors in a certain location.
Right. Yeah, no, that's
we should have had another meeting for that part.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. But and because decisions can't be made in the absence of all CSC members, like for today, let's continue this discussion, Mario, with all of the CSC members there so that we can make a collective decision. So we'll be sure to address it at that point. Thank you. James, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the comments. Yeah, so that's I think that's all I had. I just want to leave a lot of time for the community to bring up any questions or suggestions that you might have, and specific to the pesticide monitoring. And I just want to make a clarification that it's CARB, the Air Resources Board, that is doing the monitoring. DPR has assisted us, but we're the ones doing the actual monitoring.
Yeah, I got another question. I would like to have paperwork seeing how you guys do your actually, investigations on certain locations, like saying that putting a monitor here or there, like that we could get a better understanding. If you guys could send us some paperwork, how you guys do your process of investigation of pesticides.
Yeah, I will say, we kind of based on where a lot of the interest is, and we showed that heat map earlier. And we do have to have something that fits all of those criteria that I listed earlier.
I came a little late. My wife came. Everybody got back home, but Yeah, I'm trying to get a better understanding, because we've got a lot of areas that I think we should put monitors to find out what's going on in those locations. And especially right there at the mountain, that mountain that we got there, I would like to have a monitor there, because when they start digging all that dirt out, there'll be a lot of gases coming out of there. And I just want to know if it's a hazardous for our community, for health issues, and get a better understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for that. Yeah, if you don't mind putting in a chat, because it's a little hard to hear
Yeah,
on my laptop. If you can put in the chat the location, and
yeah,
we can go take a look. And we as long as it kind of meets all of those criteria, and we want to just make sure that the community as a whole is kind of at least interested in that area as well. We can
believe me, well, I don't know, but I
Yeah,
feel
Mario,
yeah, but a
I
lot
can't
of
hear you, Mario. You're cutting out. So, and we can't do the interpretation because our interpretation team can't hear you.
Okay, the only thing I want to say is because a lot of community people don't have communication, or they don't know the knowledge what's going on, and they're not educated what's really going on these areas. We
Yeah.
do, because we get involved, and there's a lot of people don't get involved.
Right. So it sounds like you're bringing up the need for outreach and education. So let's because we can't translate what you're saying very well. We'll make an action item to reach out to you directly to see what material you're hoping to get sent to you. I think that there's some material that can be sent. In addition to that, let's make sure that next time when you call in, maybe hold the mic closer to you, and then we can hear you.
I got it
So
right
I'm
on my
gonna go
face.
ahead and put you on mute because we can't translate, and so now it's unfair that the Spanish speakers can't hear what you're saying. So we're gonna go ahead. I see Bianca had her hand raised too. Bianca, go ahead.
I don't know if Michelle wants to do a follow-up in the questions that Mario was asking, but I do have quite a few questions to James.
Yeah,
Arvin,
I was gonna try to point out a couple of things that I thought that maybe, James, you could help explain. I heard Mario say mobile monitoring for pesticides, and so I'm hoping maybe you can explain exactly what the monitoring looks like. Like, is it using canisters, or is it mobile, or what are the specifics of what we can and what we cannot do?
Yeah. So pesticide monitoring is kind of really different from monitoring for like PM or ozone, which are very well established. Pesticide monitoring just requires running air through a sample media, and we have to take that tube or that cartridge or canister, and all of that depends on what we're looking for. But we have to take that back to the lab, so there is no real-time monitoring for that. And that could take months to even see data, just given the processes that happen with the actual analysis, but also the data validation that the lab goes through in itself. In terms of mobile monitoring, that goes back to the point that because the technology is kind of not really moving along, we don't have that option. And we're kind of following a model that we've been following for decades, following DPR's lead on pesticide monitoring, where we're trying to capture data at a set location for many weeks, so they can use that data to establish their subchronic and chronic levels, subchronic. So we want to meet that criteria, which I think for 1,3-D is 13 week. And I think, was that it? Did I miss something, Bianca?
no, that was for Michelle, but I do have some questions.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go. Yeah.
So one of the questions that I do have, you were mentioning that like the monitoring that you're doing, you have to be present to do the monitoring. Would you let the ag commissioner know when are those testings? I'm also thinking that there could be a reduction if growers know that there's going to be a monitor near in the location. So is it something spontaneous that that CARB is going to be doing with DPR, or is there a protocol for other people to know? It's just a precautionary, just to have a clear understanding that we would get clear readings, as you showed in your graph, that there were some spikes at certain weeks. So I just want to be clear on that. That's one of my questions. I don't know if you want to answer that, and then I have follow-ups.
Yeah, I'll answer that. So I will say that, just based on the model, so we'll be sampling for 13 weeks and 4 times a week, 4 24-hour samples. So our goal is to kind of randomize everything. Typically that's something we would share, but if if the CSC thinks that we might get different data kind of based on if someone were to find out and not apply during those days, then potentially we can keep that maybe just to ourselves, internal to CARB. I'm gonna have to check on that to see if there's any protocol based on the calendar on when we work. But we also got to understand that there's planning involved because we're coming from Sacramento and there's traveling for our team, so we have to at least have a schedule for our team to follow. And just going back on that, so if the CSC is hesitant on sharing that calendar, we can kind of look at that and maybe hold off on sharing that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to also jump in here and follow up on a few things. Well, first, Bianca, you had mentioned you were worried about certain spikes that was shown in that data. We're targeting those weeks because we know that's when pesticides are typically used, but that doesn't mean that the use pattern is going to be exactly the same. And we just don't have a way of knowing that because it's going to happen in the future. But what we do know is the growers, the farmers, they aim to apply during those certain months so they can meet certain benchmarks for like when they want to plant and do all that. So we expect, because that's that pattern from previous years, that those growers will still have that same pattern going forward.
Yeah, I was wondering because I do have a follow-up because of that. I know that when they're restricted materials, the ag commissioner gives the notice of intent and gives a period for the application to happen. But because of weather condition, it could extend maybe a couple weeks and things like that. Would CARB take those precautionary items in place when they're doing monitoring? If weather changes, not to monitor when there's a drastic wind change and there's not going to be an application at that moment. Would CARB do those follow-ups or make sure that when those monitors do happen is when things are stable and there's a potential of exposure for community members?
That's something we can look at, but given we need to have some sort of plan in place because we're sending people out, for a week at a time, pretty much. That's something we may or may not be able to work around. I can't give you a clear answer, like if we see it's going to rain in 2 days, if we can even make our adjustments to our travel plans. And, and that we try our best because we're monitoring for 4 out of the 7 days of the week and trying to keep it randomized throughout. So hopefully, the goal is to really get a good representation of what's going on in the community.
Based on our previous work, we found that monitoring for those 4 out of 7 days still gives that good representation.
Does it include the weekends by any chance, or is it just a work day, Monday through Friday?
Yeah, that's we're trying to randomize for the entire week.
Hi, this is Lily from OEHA. May I add a little bit of context, if I may? To the earlier point, James, that you had mentioned that this is a 13-week seasonal intensive, like 4 out of 7 days, and to a different point about also talking about reference exposure levels being chronic, subchronic. Well, part of the understanding of data that we need for the chronic endpoint anyway is more continuous, more consistent monitoring. So that is part of the data gap that a 13-week design, it still is short of answering those questions, Bianca, that you're asking about, like, would this be a weekend? Would this be a Tuesday? Like the randomness of that part is really hard to capture with a snapshot, and a 13-week snapshot is kind of what we're talking about here with what James is talking about. And so there would still be that shortcoming, so to speak, about how to get a chronic exposure reference level, because we don't actually have exposure data for that long of period of time.
Now that I was able to hear Lily from OEHA, I do have a question. I know that you were mentioning 2 chemicals, 1,3-D and methyl, oh my God.
MITC, methyl
MITC.
isothiocyanate. Yeah.
My question is, what are the health hazards of having these type of exposures to community member? I know back in September, you gave us just a little bit of brief details of them. I know you mentioned that there was like 4 actual pesticides, toxic pesticides in the area. Is there a reason and why there's only 2 pesticides being monitored, not all the top 4 contenders in the area? Is it because of the high elevations of these 2 chemicals, or because of funding? What is the reasoning why only 2 chemicals?
Well, yeah, I think the other ones were sulfur and mineral oil. So we don't have methods for that. And sulfur is kind of a naturally occurring compound, and mineral oil is, it isn't going to be a fumigant. So that's not really released in the air. So that's not something we're looking at in particular. I don't know if there was something else that you're concerned with that maybe we can check out, but these are the highest use based on those the previous 2019, 2020, and 21 data. So that's what we're going off of. I don't know what the patterns were prior to that, if it was much different. But we're trying our best with just the data we have. And back to the point earlier, that's kind of how we're modeling our monitoring, and things could change just depending on what's being grown, what the farmers, decide they want to grow that year or this upcoming year, I guess.
Can we also maybe get a refresher on what type of crops these chemicals are being used as community members, to know that these could be the exposures when you see these type of crops in the area?
Yeah, I think that was shared back in September. I think DPR did a few slides on that. I can bring that up, or Daniela, I
They
don't know,
only
you
did
wanna.
a pie graph. I'm going back on my notes. They did a pie graph, but I was wondering, can they associate these type of chemicals to what type of graph? It was just a general of what kind of crops there are in the area, but specifically what these chemicals are being used and what crops are being used would be nice to have also.
Yeah, I can bring that up. That was shared at the previous meeting. Let me go ahead and bring that up.
Then while you're looking at that, I do have another follow-up question.
Oh,
So, in the CSC meeting, when Yvonne was mentioning about 1,3-D being applied in the area, I remember one of our community members was mentioning the underwater contamination also of these type of chemicals. I know that there was measures that the state is implementing in the area to water more the soil to minimize the exposure of 1,3-D, but it's also affecting the underwater groundwater. So is the EPA being involved? Is any of the state agencies also working with you guys in making that possible? Because these nitrates are affecting our water. I know it's not part of the 617 process, but having that continuous state agency collaboration would be nice to see who's going to be held responsible of these waters being. I just wanted to see if somebody has done the follow-up.
So we actually have at DPR a groundwater protection program, and I can take that question that you had about 1,3-D in groundwater and get back to you, and we can report that back.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm also seeing a comment from Lily Bianca. Nitrates issue was brought up by Tom Prado. Stephanie, do you have a question? Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to see. Hi, everyone. This is Stephanie. I just wanted to see, James, if you found the presentation. If not, I'm happy to share my screen. And maybe just verbalize that based on the presentation within the boundary, the types of crops that MITC is applied on is on mostly carrots, also potatoes, sweet potatoes, and basil. I think maybe that was your question, Bianca. What crops it's being applied to?
Yeah, I do have that up. I don't know if DPR wants to go ahead and take the reins on this, or I can just bring it up just to review it.
Yeah, if you could share your screen, that would be appreciated. So typically both MITC and 1,3-D are both pre-plant fumigants. So they're used before any of the crops are planted. So if you see a crop that's already there, like an almond field, the fumigant is long gone and no longer an exposure risk.
These are alternating crops that altered throughout the year. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, so okay, so grapes, like for example, grapes, they are like, since they're vineyards, when a grower is establishing a field, they would apply the fumigant to make sure that they can then plant in that field. And so the grapes are then they grow the grapes, and the grapes are there for many years. For carrots, for example, once fumigated, they would fumigate before they would do the planting as well. And that's true for both 1,3-D and then the MITC fumigant as well.
Any other questions there, Bianca, or anyone else related to this data point here? Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing your screen. So I think, James, we can conclude your presentation. I'm not sure if you had other,
No,
I think you're on your last slide.
I got a question. I got my hand
Oh,
up.
go ahead.
Okay, how she was saying about that water, the water does got a lot to do with it, because they throw all that waste in the landfill here. We got 6 miles going up, we got 6 miles going down, and it does create gases. And I think we should monitor in those locations to find out, and monitor for pesticides. Because if it's going down in our groundwater, that's what they're doing. They call it recycled water, but it's not recycled water. It's pesticides and chemicals, what they dump there. I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, we'll say that when we're monitoring, we're kind of targeting certain compounds, and that's just kind of a limitation of air monitoring. We can't monitor for everything and figure out exactly what's in there. So that's why we need data from the usage permits that will allow us to kind of plan, I guess, you know, in a way that allows us to capture the right data. You know, with
but-
off gassing of water, I can't, you know, we're not certain what's in there. I understand that it's kind of in the maybe the ag area that, you know, you might be worried that, you know, there's a lot of dumping, but you know,
No,
and that
there's a lot of dumping, and not only that, we could smell it. We could smell it a mile away. I complained about it before, and that and you or this meeting right here, it really told me what it is, you know. And the thing is that we should monitor whatever we think is pesticides there. If we not do it, then we're not doing our job. That's the way I see it.
I mean, and that's what we're doing. We're basing our monitoring off of usage. So
Yeah, but
Um,
you're trying to tell me that there's a certain type of pesticide that you guys go after. But the point is, we need to find out what type of gases are coming out of those landfills to make sure that it's not toxic for the people. Because you smell the gases coming out a mile away. And I already complained about it 2 times, and then they did the investigation. And two, I would like to see some paperwork how they did it. I want to learn how they did it.
Yeah, that sounds, Mario, like a specific action item that the air district should follow up with you directly to ensure that those questions are.
I would like everybody to know what's going on, you know,
Yeah.
because the point is that we have to educate ourselves. You know, we have to educate ourselves what's going on. I feel that everybody should know. I mean, right here, all the CC members, you know, and we need to figure out how to fix up this problem. That's what 617 is all about, to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct about that.
And I would like them, you know, really test for whatever pesticide or whatever it comes out, like that we could get an idea what's going on. And I would like you guys to give us paperwork like that we could educate ourselves to understand what, you know, what's getting dumped out there and what type of gases are coming out.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're identifying a gap in today's presentation and information that was provided, specifically regarding the outreach and education to the community so they can be informed and knowledgeable about what's happening and the impact and health risks associated with exposure to all of these pesticides. So that's another action item to bring to the CSC meeting so that the entire community can kind of decide on what that might look like. I do want to make sure that we have enough time to hear about other pesticide related agency updates. So we do have a few more minutes to move on to.
Very important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important.
Because if we're gonna be dumping, we are never fix that. You know, we ain't gonna fix nothing, and that's what I'm seeing. Because you know, we have to fix up the problem. If we don't fix up the problem, I mean, all this work we're doing is for nothing. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and so we also need to include the rest of the community. So let's make sure that this gets discussed at the other meeting, Mario. So respectfully, I'm going to move on to the next item. Bianca, if you could ask your question and then hopefully we get your answers. And then we can move to some agency updates.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna take one more minute. I forgot to ask this question. Is there a specific time frame that CARB is looking to do this type of monitoring? Are we looking from here in a year, or when will we get the results back? When is the monitoring gonna happen, and when are we gonna get the results back?
yeah, just going back to that data that I showed earlier, you know, the 1,3-D was concentrated kind of in the summertime, or maybe I haven't flipped, but and MITCs kind of throughout the year. So right now we're kind of looking at maybe starting in June, if that sounds okay with everybody, I guess. Yeah, we want to focus when we monitor based on past usage. And yeah, I just want to add that yeah, if you don't have your questions today, feel free to email either me or Michelle Byers, and we can get back to you.
Thank you, James. And Stephanie, I had seen your hand up earlier. I'm not sure if you had anything to add at this point.
Hi everyone, that's Stephanie. I want to leave time for the agency updates, but so maybe I'll just quickly summarize and thank everyone for the really great questions. I think at this point, we do have an opportunity. I know it is a priority of the community to start this monitoring, and like James mentioned, based on the use of pesticides, I think an opportunity presents itself in the summer for us to get started with this. And so maybe with that, as you all have a chance to kind of review and have questions, we definitely encourage any feedback that you might have. Overall, the couple of sites we've continued to hear feedback on from the start was in that heat map that James showed. And so maybe following this meeting as a follow-up, we can share that map again and see if those sites still kind of resonate with the group, that that still continues to be somewhere that folks do want to see monitoring. And if we have time at the end, we're happy to take any feedback of, within that site, like, are there potentially, areas that you all already know of that we could potentially start to think about making connections, seeing if we could place the monitor. I know already in scanning through some of the comments, a lot of them are related to schools, because of course we want to be monitoring where there's sensitive receptors like children. And so we can kind of follow up there, and we'll continue to hear feedback on this. And can even continue to discuss this at our next pesticide subcommittee as well. So maybe I'll just wrap up quickly with those thoughts.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that. And, the theme today is we have a lot of great questions, and all of your questions deserve a complete, comprehensive answer. But we just always run out of time. And I want to make space for our agencies to provide other updates related to pesticides. So we have several agencies here today. I'd like to invite our Ag Commissioner Glenn to kick us off during this item. So we'll make space for specific updates related to pesticides, and then we'll hear from DPR, and then make sure that you all can ask your questions. So you can raise your hand or ask your question in the chat, and we'll make sure to call on you. Glenn, please feel free to kick us off.
So related to pesticide notification, the Tulare beta test is ending tomorrow. So with that in mind, DPR is looking for another county to do another iteration of the beta testing. And so earlier this afternoon, our county CAO and county council had a meeting with DPR to discuss how the Tulare beta test went, and the possibility of us beginning another beta test in the near future in Kern. And so the next steps are, there are a couple of asks that the CAO and county council want from DPR. So they're going to discuss that, and then we'll come back and have another meeting about how to proceed if the county chooses to do a beta test for notification. So that's where it stands. I would assume that DPR might be giving an update about the status of the Tulare beta test.
Thank you, Glenn. Any questions for Glenn before we move to DPR? Go ahead, Bianca.
I'm so sorry. I'm the only
No
one
need to apologize.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I really appreciate that good news that you're giving us as community members. I was wondering, do you need any input from the community members in regards to what could be feasible in this area, and would would you also be using the funding from Shafter to do the beta testing, or DPR is going to be funding that notification?
There's no funding that's necessary for this. The only additional work that my county department would do might be to referring some questions to DPR or answering some questions about something. As for input for specifics of how the program is going to be, this is not a program that's directed in any one area. It's designed to be a run through of the program that would be the program that the whole state would have. So DPR already has that program. That's what's running in Tulare right now. It's a website, and you can also sign up for notification, texts or emails, I think. But that site as it is pretty much set. So the only tweaking that they're going to do is if something doesn't work or there's a programming issue. So I don't think DPR is really soliciting feedback for that, and my department's not either. It's really DPR's program. So I think it's already been designed.
Just a follow-up that I do have, would you be outreaching to schools? I know that one of the hotspots that was suggested was Mountain View School and maybe Sunset. I know those were the top contenders on hotspots for like these two chemicals that are going to be monitoring. Would you also be outreaching to these type of schools that are surrounded by agriculture?
To what end? That's not really necessary for the notification, because the notification is it's gonna be just like it would run when the state implements it. It's not gonna be just a certain area of the county. It's not gonna be just certain users. Anybody in the world will be able to access it when it runs in Kern County, if it runs in Kern County.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Bianca. I'm not seeing any more questions for Glenn at this time. So I'd like to invite DPR to provide some updates. I see a few folks from DPR here.
Yes, thank you. So I have a few updates. So the first is, I think in the last Shafter meeting, there was a request for a presentation on DPR Shafter monitoring data, and we'll be able to provide that presentation. So we'll start coordinating with the Air District and Harder & Co. on when exactly that presentation will occur. I know that this isn't Shafter, but I know there's a lot of overlap, so I wanted to give everybody that update here. I assume it'll probably be April, but I'll coordinate with them. The next update is in the last Arvin Lamont meeting. I know that there was a request for a presentation on the 13D residential regulation, and to give a presentation on or a summary of that regulation. And so that's something that we can provide. And again, we'll coordinate with the Air District and Harder & Co. on that presentation. And I think it was asked to be in the subcommittee, so we'll figure out exactly when that could occur. So those are the two updates on presentations. So then my next update is during our, I think, last pesticide subcommittee meeting, we had actually received some feedback that the language we had used in some of our presentations had too much jargon. And there were questions about basically how we do the work that we do. So we went back and we discussed this internally, and we'd like to do better in terms of explaining our work and what exactly we do. So we're working to create some infographics and fact sheets about our work. We have a couple of infographics that we've started working on already, and those are concerned with how we do our air sampling. And then the second one is a really general overview of what happens to a pesticide after it's applied. And so we have those two we're working on, but we wanted to solicit ideas from the community about anything else they might be interested in hearing about. So I can either take those now. I know it's a lot to think about, but I'll also put my email address in. And so you can always email me if you have any ideas about anything that you're interested in learning about in infographic format from DPR. So I'll put my.
Thank you, Anila, for that. I appreciate you soliciting community input. So just to clarify, you're looking for any recommendations that folks have on what they might want to see in a presentation. So
Yeah,
if folks recommendations right now, go ahead and unmute. We have about 5 minutes or so. And then I'm wondering for the CSC committee members that are here today, if we could spend some time at the next meeting when all members are there, also gathering more feedback. Happy to do that. So if you have recommendations now, it'd be a good time to share.
And
Maria,
Amy, this is Stephanie. Maybe to clarify, it's Aniela, will you let us know? It's like a fact sheet or an infographic that you might like pass out to someone, like almost maybe like a flyer or something, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Sorry, that's what I meant. That an graphic or fact sheet. The other thing, I can't promise that I could do everything suggested, but we'll work on trying to get what we can do. So we want ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. Maria, you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I would like to see if all the information that you guys get, for community to know,
Mario, we can't hear you.
if you could give some paperwork,
Still can't hear you, Mario. I'm sorry. Are you wearing a headset? Can you put the headset a little bit closer to you, like to where you're speaking? Now you're muted, Mario.
Okay. Look at. I would like to see some paperwork given to the CEC members and explaining a little bit better how you guys do your guys work, showing us all the process, and when you guys find something, if it's too much, what you guys do about it, and things like that. I would like to see. At that we could educate ourselves a little bit more.
Thank you, Mario. Yep. Thank you so much for getting a little bit closer to the mic. I appreciate that. Gustavo? Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just I was waiting for DPR maybe to expand on the potential notification project for currents. But again, I just want to thanks the commissioner. I think these are good news that DPR and the county are having these conversations that was we planned last year. So very happy to hear that you both already having those conversations, which is great. And please do your best. Both agencies to implement that. That we're being asking for this. It's very important for us. So please, encourage you to do your best to implement it here in Kern. And one of the recommendations, maybe if possible, if you decide to do it, maybe to give us maybe a quick overview of the if it will be like in full implementation of what the model of the DPR's model will be. Because my understanding is that the project in Tulare was somehow limited. It was not implemented in full swing, what DPR is planning to do. So it will be great, if here in Kern is implemented at this, is full, as this plan to become eventually. So if you decide to do that, I think it will be good to give us an update either at the Pesticide Subcommittee or maybe on the all CSC meeting members meeting.
Gustavo, maybe you weren't listening before, but I've already said that if we do a beta testing current, it's going to be exactly like it would be live. There's no restrictions. As I said, the whole world will be able to access the website and sign up for notification if they wish.
Thank you. That would be great.
Thank you both for clarifying. Agency updates or questions that folks have? Brian, would you like to share your comment? I can read it out loud for you.
Oh, I guess I can. And hi everyone. This is just Brian. I'm one of the supervisors at CARB. So I just wondered if it'd be helpful, yeah, to maybe a fact sheet on carbs and just show like what the canisters look like and the sampling and maybe like the limitations and assumptions we have to make with it, because it is measuring pesticides is a lot more difficult than like, these neat new low cost like particulate matter samplers, so I don't know if that would help people understand the process. If people are interested, we can work on that. Yeah.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, I'm seeing support for that there. And Bianca, go ahead.
I am also in support, Brian. I do have a follow-up. I know I'm not sure we're done with all the agenda. I do have an outside comment, but it relates to the pesticide or to the Ag Commissioner.
You're taking us there. This is our last opening. I was just going to open up the floor for any other general comments. So you've taken us there. Go for it, Bianca.
So my question is, I know in one of the meetings we had with the Ag Commissioner, Glenn, I recall that you mentioned in November, you would try to help us out with the green vegetative barriers. I know in the past, in December and in January, we were having that conversation about the green vegetative barriers in the community. I was wondering if we could have that connection, if we could go back with you, maybe just having that interaction. We're seeing progress here, and we want to see if you're able to help us out to facilitate maybe these growers that we've been wanting to outreach to do those green vegetative barriers with the Air District. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I was wondering if we could do a follow-up with him.
I'm just sitting here in my office waiting for people to call me for help. But I haven't, we talked about that, and I'm willing to give the contact information for the growers, but I need to know which growers, So if somebody calls me and says we need to contact information for these growers around this area, I'm perfectly willing to help you to get that contact information.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Great. It sounds like that is an action item there. Any other comments or questions we'll use these last 5 minutes to see if anybody else has any public comments or anything else that you would like to add. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thanks, Amy. This is Stephanie. Maybe as part of kind of our next steps, I'll just share a reminder for folks that this is a bi-monthly meeting that we have. And so our next pesticide subcommittee will be in March, on March 26th. And I've already kind of, I've heard 2 topics that we could, potentially discuss. Aniela did bring up the request about 1,3-D and having a presentation regarding the regulations there. And then also finalizing, I think, working with you all on a plan to kick off air pesticide monitoring in the community as well. And so those are 2 topics that we can work with, and we'll work with the co-leads to kind of plan out the next pesticide subcommittee. But just noting those are 2 topics that I heard for the upcoming meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for summarizing those next steps. So just to confirm, the next pesticide subcommittee meeting will be March 26th at 4 p.m. via Zoom. So you'll receive the link just the same way that you received it for today. I want to make sure that we leave space to thank you all for this very engaging conversation. It was really nice as your facilitators to see a presentation that provided comprehensive updates and was very responsive to the community, and see community engagement where you all are asking questions, getting those answers, and helping move through a successful implementation of all the recommended SERP action items. So with that said, I hope everyone has a restful rest of your evening. We will be tracking all of the updates that were presented today, and we expect to have a report out at the next Arvin Lamont regularly scheduled CSC meeting. And then we'll see you if you're going to join us for the next pesticide subcommittee meeting at the March meeting. Thank you so much. Hope you all have a nice evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everyone.
Buenas noches.